The text from Mom arrived on December 18th. Christmas Eve dinner at 6. Your brother is bringing his fiancée. Please be on time and dress appropriately. Dress appropriately. As if I'd shown up to family gatherings in pajamas. I was 28 years old and my family had been waiting for me to get serious about life for the past 6 years. Since I dropped out of my corporate job at Deloitte to work on what my brother called phone games for teenagers. Are you coming? Mom had called the next day to confirm. I'll be there. And you'll be presentable? Ryan is bringing Caroline. Her father owns 3 car dealerships. We want to make a good impression. I'll wear a shirt with buttons. Michael, I'm serious. Your brother has a real career. A real future. Try not to make him look bad by comparison. That was Mom's way of saying, please don't remind everyone that you're the family disappointment. Now standing on my parents' porch in suburban New Jersey on Christmas Eve, I could hear the gathering inside. Laughter, Christmas music, the clinking of glasses. Through the window, I could see Ryan holding court in the living room, his arm around a blonde woman who must be Caroline. I rang the doorbell. Mom answered, her smile bright and automatic. Michael, you're here. She looked me over quickly, dark jeans, gray sweater, the pea coat I'd worn for 3 winters. Her smile tightened slightly. Come in. Everyone's in the living room. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon. Dad had gone overboard with decorations again. Lights on every surface, 3 different Christmas trees, garland wrapped around every banister and door frame. Michael. Dad emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers. Good to see you, son. How's the app thing going? It's going well. Still keeping you busy? Very busy. Well, that's good. Keeps you out of trouble anyway. He chuckled and moved past me toward the living room. I followed him in to find about 15 people scattered across the couches and chairs. Ryan spotted me immediately. Little brother. He stood up, pulling Caroline with him. Everyone, this is Michael, the family tech guru. I shook hands with Caroline, whose smile was polite but distant. Nice to meet you. Ryan tells me you work on an app, she said. I do. That's fun. My little cousin is obsessed with apps. He's 12. Ryan laughed. Michael's app is a little more sophisticated than Candy Crush, babe. It's... He paused, searching for words. What exactly does it do again, Mike? It's a productivity platform. Helps people manage their workflow. Right. Workflow management. Ryan turned to the room. Mike's been working on this thing for years. Very dedicated. Very persistent. The way he said persistent made it sound like stubbornness. Like I was a child refusing to give up on a toy. Uncle Jerry spoke up from his chair by the fireplace. You making any money from this app thing? Some. Enough to live on? I get by. He lives in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. Mom interjected quickly as if that explained everything. One of those trendy neighborhoods where young people go before they can afford real places. Bushwick isn't that trendy, I said. Well, it's very urban. Mom's code for not where successful people live. Dinner was called and we moved to the dining room. The table was set with Mom's good china, candles flickering between dishes of roasted vegetables and honey-glazed ham. Ryan and Caroline were seated at the head of the table, places of honor on either side of Dad. I was at the far end between Aunt Linda and my teenage cousin Josh. Uncle Mike, Josh whispered as we sat down, is it true you made an app? I did. What's it called? Flow State. His eyes widened. Wait, Flow State? The productivity app. You've heard of it? Dude, everyone at school uses it. All the teachers make us use it for group projects. It's actually really good. Thanks. You made that. Before I could answer, Dad was tapping his glass for attention. I want to say a few words before we eat. This year has been incredible for our family. Ryan, we're so proud of you. Promoted to senior associate at the firm, engaged to this wonderful woman. You're everything we hoped you'd be. Ryan nodded humbly while Caroline squeezed his hand. And Michael, Dad continued, his tone shifting slightly, we're glad you're still pursuing your interests. Even if they're unconventional. Polite laughter around the table. Maybe this will be the year you figure out what you want to do with your life, Dad added, raising his glass. To family. To family, everyone echoed. I drank my wine and said nothing. The meal progressed with the usual family small talk. Ryan discussed his work at the law firm, corporate litigation, big clients, recent wins. Caroline talked about her job in pharmaceutical sales, her commissions, the company car they'd given her. What about you, Michael? Caroline asked during the main course, her tone suggesting polite obligation rather than genuine interest. Are you looking for other work? More stable work. I'm focused on my current project. But long-term, she pressed, you can't build a life on an app. Ryan says these things are usually just hobbies that people do until they find real careers. Caroline's right, Mom said quickly. Michael, honey, you're 28. Most people your age are established by now. Ryan had already made associate by your age. I'm aware. We just worry, Dad added. This app thing is fine as a side project, but it's time to think about your future. Health insurance, retirement, buying a house. You can't do that on whatever you're making from phone downloads. I'm not making money from downloads. See? Dad looked at Mom. He's giving it away for free. That's not a business, that's a hobby. Actually, we use a different revenue model. The point is, Ryan interrupted, you need stability. I could talk to my firm. We might have openings in IT support. It's not glamorous, but it's steady income. Benefits. A path forward. I appreciate that, but at least think about it, Mom pleaded. Please. For us. We want you to have a normal life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again. And again. I pulled it out briefly, 23 notifications in the past minute. I silenced it and put it back. Popular tonight, Ryan said with a smirk. Let me guess, your gamer friends? Business contacts. He laughed. Business contacts. Mike, you can drop the act. We're family. It's okay to admit the app thing isn't working out. I never said it wasn't working out. You live in a studio apartment. You don't own a car. You're wearing a sweater that's seen better days. He gestured at me. Those aren't signs of success. Ryan, Caroline said softly, touching his arm. What? I'm being honest. Someone needs to be. He looked around the table. We've all been tiptoeing around it for years. Mike dropped out of a good job to chase some Silicon Valley fantasy. It didn't work out. That's fine. That's life. But now it's time to accept reality and move forward. The table had gone quiet. Everyone was carefully not looking at me. I didn't drop out, I said calmly. I resigned. After my app had already raised its series of funding. Series A, Ryan repeated. What's that, like venture capital? Yes. How much? Uncle Jerry asked bluntly. 12 million. The silence deepened. Ryan's smile faltered slightly. $12 million? Mom said faintly. For an app. That was 4 years ago. We've raised more since then. How much more? Dad asked. Series B was 45 million. Series C was 120 million. You could have heard a pin drop. Josh was staring at me with his mouth open. Caroline had gone very still. You raised, Ryan said slowly, $120 million? For a phone app. It's not just a phone app. It's a comprehensive workflow platform used by over 40 million people worldwide. Enterprise clients include Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and about 200 other companies. 40 million people, Mom whispered. As of last month, yes. Dad's phone buzzed. Then Mom's. Then Ryan's. Then everyone's phones all at once, lighting up with notifications. Dad pulled his out, frowning at the screen. His face went pale. Oh my God. What? Mom leaned over to look. There's a news alert. About flow state. About. He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. About Google acquiring it for $5.8 billion. The table erupted. That's Michael's app. Josh shouted. Uncle Mike made flow state. Billion. Caroline said. With AB. Ryan grabbed his phone, fingers flying. I watched his face cycle through emotions. Confusion, disbelief, shock, horror. It's real, he said hoarsely. Bloomberg, TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, they're all reporting it. Google just acquired flow state for $5.8 billion. Founder Michael Chin. He looked up at me. Your name is Michael Chin. Michael Chin Park. I use Chin professionally. You sold your company to Google, Mom said, her voice strange and distant, for almost $6 billion. Yes. When? The deal closed this morning. The announcement was scheduled for after market close, which was... I checked my watch. 7 minutes ago. Dad was reading from his phone, his hand shaking slightly. Michael Chun Park, 28, founded FlowState 6 years ago while working as a consultant at Deloitte. The app, which revolutionized team collaboration and project management, has been valued at $5.8 billion in an all-cash acquisition by Google. Chun Park, who will receive approximately $4.2 billion as the majority shareholder, is expected to remain as CEO of FlowState under Google's leadership. $4 billion, Ryan said. He'd gone completely white. You're getting $4 billion? $4.2 billion minus taxes. Around $2.8 billion after everything clears. After taxes, he repeated mechanically. You're worried about taxes on $4 billion. Aunt Linda found her voice. Michael, honey, are you telling us you're a billionaire? As of about 8 minutes ago, yes. The dining room erupted again. Everyone talking at once, phones out, pulling up articles and news reports. My face was on CNBC, Bloomberg, every tech news site. The story was everywhere. He's trending on Twitter, Josh reported, scrolling frantically. #FlowState acquisition is #2 worldwide. Mom had pulled up a Forbes article. She read aloud, her voice shaking. Chun Park has been notoriously private about his success, rarely giving interviews and maintaining a modest lifestyle despite his company's unicorn valuation. Friends describe him as focused solely on the product, uninterested in the typical trappings of Silicon Valley wealth. Modest lifestyle, Ryan interrupted with a laugh that sounded slightly unhinged. We thought he was broke. We thought he was living in a studio because he couldn't afford anything better. I do live in a studio, I said. I like it. It's close to the office. The office that you sold to Google for $6 billion. $5.8 billion. The valuation is important. Caroline was staring at me like I'd appeared out of thin air. Ryan told me you were the family disappointment. He said you dropped out of the real world to play with apps. Caroline, Ryan said weakly. He said you were probably going to move back in with your parents when the app thing failed. I said that was a possibility, Ryan amended quickly. A concern we all had. We were worried, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. You never told us about the funding. Or the users. Or the enterprise clients. You just said you were working on an app. I told you exactly what I was doing. Multiple times. At last year's Christmas I mentioned the Microsoft partnership. You said it was nice that I had hobbies. Microsoft partnership, Dad said faintly. We thought you meant you used Microsoft products. Uncle Jerry was reading another article. It says here that FlowState has been profitable for 3 years. Revenue last year was $340 million. $347 million, I corrected. We had a strong Q4. You made $347 million last year, Mom said, and you're wearing a sweater with a hole in the elbow. I looked down. He was right, there was a small hole near my left elbow. It's comfortable. You're a billionaire in a damaged sweater. The sweater doesn't know I'm a billionaire. It works the same either way. Ryan had his head in his hands. Caroline was rubbing his back, looking concerned. Around the table, relatives were having rapid whispered conversations, all while constantly checking their phones as more news broke. The group chat is exploding, Josh reported gleefully. Everyone wants to know if you're really our cousin. My own phone was becoming unusable. Texts, calls, emails flooding in faster than I could clear notifications. I pulled it out and scrolled through quickly. Congratulations from investors, interview requests from journalists, messages from friends I hadn't spoken to since college. And one text from my assistant. Sir, your legal team needs guidance on managing the media response. Also, Google PR wants to coordinate statements. Also, you have 47 interview requests and counting. I typed back, handle what you can. I'm at family dinner. We'll call in 2 hours. Family dinner, Aunt Linda said, having apparently read over my shoulder. You just sold your company for $6 billion and you're having family dinner? It's Christmas Eve. Where else would I be? Dad was still reading articles, his expression cycling between shock and what might have been pride. Michael, it says here that Google's CEO personally flew to New York to finalize the deal. That Sundar Pichai called you one of the most visionary product designers of the decade. That was generous of him. Generous, Ryan said. The CEO of Google compliments you and you call it generous. What should I call it? I don't know. Something other than generous. Something that acknowledges you just became one of the richest 28-year-olds in the world. Caroline had found a different article. It says you turned down acquisition offers from Facebook and Microsoft before accepting Google's offer. Facebook offered $4.2 billion and you said no. Their vision for the product didn't align with ours. Their vision. Ryan laughed again, that same slightly hysterical sound. You turned down $4 billion because of vision? Yes. And then you got $6 billion instead. $5.8 billion. And yes. Mom stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need a moment. She walked quickly toward the kitchen. Dad followed her. Through the doorway, I could hear their whispered conversation. Did you know? Mom's voice high and tight. Of course I didn't know. How would I know? We called him a disappointment, Richard. At Thanksgiving you said he was wasting his potential. I thought he was. He lives in a studio apartment. He's a billionaire in a studio apartment. In the dining room, the relatives had started breaking into smaller conversations. Everyone was on their phones, reading articles, looking up my net worth, checking FlowState's website. Ryan sat frozen in his chair, staring at nothing. Caroline was reading something on her phone, her eyes growing wider. Ryan, she said quietly, it says your brother owns 72% of the company. That means his stake is worth $4.2 billion. Ryan finished. He said that already. But you told me he was broke. I thought he was. You told me he'd probably never amount to anything. I thought, his voice cracked. I thought I was the successful one. I made senior associate. I thought I was doing so well. You are doing well, I said. Don't, he snapped. Don't patronize me. You just became a billionaire and I'm a lawyer making $180,000 a year. That's a good salary. Not compared to $4 billion. It's not a competition, Ryan. Yes, it is. He stood up abruptly. It's always been a competition. Me, the successful older brother. You, the disappointment who dropped out to play with apps. Except you weren't playing. You were building an empire while we all mocked you for it. Josh's phone rang. He answered, then held it out to me. Uncle Mike, it's my mom. She wants to talk to you. I took the phone. Hi, Aunt Susan. Is it true? She said without preamble. Did you really sell your company for billions? Yes. And we've been calling you a disappointment for 6 years? People call me a lot of things. Oh my God. Michael, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. It's fine. It's not fine. We treated you like you were wasting your life. You treated me based on what you thought you knew. Most people do. After I hung up, I looked around the table. Everyone was staring at me. Some with shock, some with something that looked like shame, Josh with pure admiration. I should probably go, I said, standing up. My team needs me to handle some of the media response. Wait, Mom said, returning from the kitchen with Dad. Her eyes were red. Michael, please don't go. We need to talk about this. What's there to talk about? Everything. Your company, your success, the fact that we had no idea what you were building. You had every opportunity to know. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. You just never listened. Because you never told us how big it was. Yes, I did. Last Christmas I told you we'd reach 20 million users. You said, that's nice, honey, and changed the subject to Ryan's promotion. Ryan flinched. At Thanksgiving, I continued, I mentioned the Microsoft partnership. A $50 million annual contract. Dad asked if that meant I was finally getting a real job. Dad's face crumpled. And last Easter I brought up the Series C funding. Mom asked if I'd finally consider going back to Deloitte because startups are so unstable. We didn't understand, Mom said desperately. The numbers didn't mean anything to us. 20 million users didn't mean anything. A $120 million funding round didn't mean anything. We didn't realize. You didn't want to realize. Because it was easier to see me as the family disappointment than to acknowledge I might actually be successful. The room had gone completely silent. That's not fair, Ryan said quietly. Isn't it? When was the last time anyone at this table asked me about my work without condescension? When was the last time anyone treated my company as legitimate? No one answered. You want to know why I didn't tell you about the acquisition? I looked around at all of them. Because I knew this would happen. Suddenly I'd be interesting. Suddenly I'd be worth your time. Not because I'd changed, but because now my success was in a form you could understand. A dollar amount large enough to impress you. Michael, Dad said, his voice rough, that's not. Yes, it is. If FlowState had sold for $50 million instead of $5.8 billion, would you be looking at me differently? If I'd built a successful company that made me comfortable but not rich, would you respect it? The silence was answer enough. I need to go, I said again. My team is waiting. I walked toward the door. Behind me I could hear Mom crying, Dad trying to find words, Ryan sitting in stunned silence. Josh caught up with me in the foyer. Uncle Mike, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It wasn't meant to be cool. It was just the truth. Are you really leaving? I have work to do. But it's Christmas Eve. Business doesn't stop for holidays. Especially not when you've just closed a $5.8 billion deal. He grinned. Can I tell my friends at school that my uncle is a billionaire? You can tell them your uncle built something useful that a lot of people wanted. The money is just a side effect. I drove back to Brooklyn in my 10-year-old Civic, watching my phone explode with notifications. By the time I got home, FlowState was trending #1 worldwide. I had 273 new email messages, and CNBC wanted an exclusive interview. My studio apartment looked the same as always. Small, efficient, everything I needed and nothing I didn't. My desktop setup dominated one wall, 3 monitors showing real-time data from FlowState's servers. Even though Google owned it now, I was still the CEO. Still responsible for the product, the users, the vision. I changed out of my Christmas sweater and into my usual t-shirt and jeans. Then I sat down at my desk and started working through the media requests, the legal documents, the transition plans. Around midnight my phone rang. Ryan's number. I considered not answering. Then I picked up. Mike, he said. His voice sounded raw. I'm sorry. For what? Everything. Years of treating you like you were less than me. Like your work didn't matter. Like you were wasting your life. Okay. That's it? Just okay. What do you want me to say, Ryan? I don't know. That you forgive me. That we can move past this. I leaned back in my chair looking at the monitors. 42 million users were online right now using the platform I'd built. Collaborating on projects, managing workflows, building things together. We can move past it, I said finally. But things are different now. Because you're rich? No. Because now you know I was never the person you thought I was. And that's going to take time to adjust to. I don't care about the money, he said. I mean, I do, it's insane, but that's not the point. The point is I was so sure I was the successful one. The one Dad was proud of. And now you realize success looks different than you thought. Yeah. Ryan, you're successful. You made senior associate at a major firm at 29. That's impressive. You have Caroline. You're building a life. That matters. But you're a billionaire. That's not the part that matters to me. What matters is I built something that 40 million people find useful. That I solved a problem that made people's work lives better. The acquisition is just validation that we did it right. He was quiet for a long moment. You really don't care about the money, do you? I care that it means I can keep building things. That I don't have to worry about funding or runway or investor pressure anymore. But the money itself. I shrugged even though he couldn't see it. It's just a number. A really big number. Still just a number. After we hung up, I returned to work. Emails to answer, decisions to make, a transition to Google to manage. The work was the same as it had been this morning before the acquisition closed. Before my family knew. Before the world found out. Around 3 a.m. I got a text from Mom. I'm sorry we never saw you. Really saw you. Can we try again? I looked at that message for a long time before responding. Yes. But next time actually listen. I promise we will. Prove it. Tell me something about FlowState. Anything. Without looking it up. There was a long pause. Then, I can't. I'm sorry. I know nothing about what you built. Then that's where we start. Not with the acquisition or the money. With understanding what I actually do. I'd like that. I set down my phone and looked around my studio apartment. Small, modest, unchanged by the day's events. Tomorrow the world would know me as a billionaire. Tonight I was still just Michael sitting in my workspace building things that mattered. My phone buzzed one more time. Josh, you're my hero, Uncle Mike. I'm going to build something amazing someday too. I smiled and typed back. Then start building. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for people to believe in you. Just build. Outside my window, Brooklyn was quiet. Somewhere in New Jersey, my family was probably still processing the news, still trying to reconcile the person they thought I was with who I actually turned out to be. That was their journey. Mine was simpler. Keep building, keep improving, keep solving problems for the 42 million people who trusted my product. The acquisition changed everything and nothing. The work remained. The purpose remained. And that was enough.